It's me, it's Queen Offset Haru, and thank you for joining me for another wonderful edition of Ask an Aquarius. If you haven't already, please hit the red subscribe button and smack the bell. Alright guys, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and pass it on to someone else who might be interested in this information. Today was very exciting because I got my second patron on Patreon. My good buddy Zamani Feelings. Zamani is, I wrote underneath this video my patrons' names. If you take Zamani's name and Google it or put it into Facebook, you'll see that he is a very, very established photographer. Zamani and I have been friends for like 20 years. He's one of the few people I have consistently had respect and love for, despite if we argued or not, because sometimes he's a Virgo and the Aquarius and Virgo sometimes butt heads. But I've always consistently loved and respected him. And he has one of the best work ethics I've ever seen. So if you have a chance to, Zamani is a photographer. And on Facebook, he has a lot of his beautiful work. If you're in Philadelphia, you can even hire him to do different events. So he works for the NFL. He works for Temple University. And he does private freelance things too. So he is an amazing photographer. So I was very humbled and I was extremely happy to see that he became my second patron. So my brothers have stepped up for me. Thank you very much, brothers. All right. If you would like to become a patron as well, please check out the link to Patreon below. All right, guys. So I'm going to do a question. And a woman said to me, why is it that men always feel the need to mansplain? And what should you do about it? If a man is mansplaining to you, what should you do? Now, first of all, I had to get us a definition of mansplaining, not to be mistaken with explaining, which is just simply giving someone an explanation. But when somebody mansplains, this is what it means: the explanation of something by a man, typically to a woman, in a manner regarded as condescending, patronizing, and often inaccurate. So the question begins, why do some men mansplain? Now, the first thing I wanted to say was it is only some men who mansplain. All men don't do this. There are two types of men who you will typically find mansplaining. Men who have huge egos. I mean, they have egos as big as all outside. They just think the world revolves around them, and whatever they say out their mouth is gospel. And this is often reinforced by number two. In our society, we condition our men from the time that they're baby boys. We condition them into this behavior. We condition them to think father knows best. We condition them to think that they are the leaders and their woman must follow them and acquiesce to what it is that they want. Now, mind you, all men don't do this. Some men have more sense than this. So a lot of men, especially the educated, intelligent ones, the ones that know better, a lot of them do know better. But it still doesn't stop the fact that our society has conditioned a great majority of them to do so. Likewise, a lot of those men with big egos, or the other ones who've been conditioned to think that they are father knows best, those men have a tendency to be misogynistic as well. So you really don't want to be in a relationship or a friendship in the first place with a man who is a misogynist, a female hater. Some of them hate women, like they live to degrade women, you see? And again, this isn't all men. Some men are cooler than a fan, you know? Some men you can have good relationships and partnerships with. Some men are totally the opposite of this. But like I said, because we condition our boys like this, a lot of them fall into this trap, unfortunately. Some of them find their way out through getting to know people and through traveling and through education, but some of them never do. Some of them go to their grave with these outdated ideas. So when she said, what should you do? Okay, if it's a man who is like a coworker or somebody you see on the street, if they start mansplaining, I don't recommend trying to explain to him that he's mansplaining and then have an argument with him. That's what I've seen a lot of women do, and it's really not effective. All it does is add fuel to his fire. And if a man is a mansplainer, explaining to him that he's mansplaining is not going to do shit. It's not going to do anything but make him defensive and probably start more mansplaining. So I don't recommend that. I've seen fights break out because of that. It can get very nasty. So I don't do that with men. When a man starts mansplaining, I excuse myself. I just leave. I go do something else. Oh, let me go to the bathroom. Oh, okay, I'll see you guys later. As soon as he starts, I escape. Pyong, I'm out. And after a while, they get the hint that you're really not trying to hear it. So they stop trying to talk to me after a while. You see? If it's just some creepy guy at work or something like that, that's how I generally handle it. As soon as they start mansplaining, I dip. And I also avoid conversations with them altogether. This happens to me all the time. Some of the times I'm on Asking Aquarius, for example, in the comment section. And I might have taken my time and researched something. Some of these things I've researched off and on for years. And some man who wants to mansplain will come up. He hasn't read anything, don't know nothing, didn't research nothing, but want to tell me how his opinion is more valid. And his opinion isn't even accurate. I don't sit there and argue with these dudes. Ain't shit happening. I just ignore him. Don't approve the comment. You know, I do something like that and I just keep it pushing. Because like I said, at the end of the day, you cannot really affect a mansplainer by explaining to him that he's mansplaining, because his mind is too warped. You're dealing with somebody with a warped mind. So anything you say to him, you're either going to become a bitch, a dyke, a feminist. You know, it's going to go into a negative immediately. So it's really no point in getting into that conversation. I just dip. A man can't mansplain to me if I'm not standing there. He can't mansplain to me if you walk away, is my point. So I would say just dip. Now, if it's a man who you can't walk away from, like your husband or your father, my first thing is, if it's your husband, why is that your husband? Why are you married to a man who would mansplain? Why are you married to a man who sounds like a misogynist? That you got to ask yourself. But he's already your husband, so let's deal with it. What you have to do is, if he really cares about you and loves you, you have to talk to him about the behavior. And if he really cares about you, he will stop. If he doesn't, he's abusive and you need to get away from him. If you start seeing a man and he's automatically mansplaining, that's a red flag that he's potentially going to be abusive, possessive, jealous, and controlling. These are flags that come up and women just walk right by them. And remember, men don't just mansplain to women. It says typically they mansplain to men too. A man with a big enough ego will mansplain to everybody. You know? So when it comes down to the bottom line, that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a misogynistic man who you really can't reason with him. If it's your father or an uncle or a brother or something like that, I recommend just discontinuing the conversation. As soon as it goes in that direction, just discontinue the conversation. Because like I said, all they do is turn ugly. If you try to explain, if you try to go into a conversation, it turns into a fight. So I just don't really see a point to it when I'm not listening, no way. The thing about me, when I used to date men, this was different. I handled it differently when I used to date them. Now I just ignore them. When I used to date men, I would ignore them unless it benefited me. And that's another reason how come some men mansplain, because some of us women make the mistake of falling into it. So if it's a man that you care about and you have a relationship with, you really shouldn't ignore him or go along with him when it benefits you. What you should do is discuss it with him openly and honestly, and as he changes his behavior. So that's my thing. I wouldn't get into a lot of fights about it. I wouldn't go down that route because, again, this is not really the kind of gentleman you should be talking to anyway. You shouldn't be having those kinds of conversations. And if he's mansplaining and making sexist jokes and stuff like that, that's who he is. And that's only going to get worse. Voldemort used to do a lot of mansplaining and making little jokes, you know? And as time progressed, I realized that that's who he was. I just wanted to believe that he was smarter than that he knew better than that he was better than that. And it's not true. If a man is doing that kind of thing, that's who he is. Believe him. Believe him the first time and leave his ass alone. And go meet you a nice brother that knows how to act. Okay? Because a nice brother will offer help, you know, but he won't try to mansplain, you know. One of the things I hate about mansplaining, and you guys, you know, might have experienced this too. I hate when I explain something and then they come mansplain exactly what I just said. I can understand that. I'll be like, I know he just heard me. Like, what is wrong with you? So, like I said, those kind of men are not the kind of men that you should be around anyway. So if you're around mansplainers, just ghost them. As soon as they start talking, just ghost. If it's a relationship issue, don't keep seeing him. Ghost. If it's your father or somebody you care about, if y'all can talk about it, talk about it. If you can't talk about it, ghost. Just get away from them as soon as they start. They can only do it while you're standing there. Okay? And it's not going to do anybody any favors for you to be fighting dudes in the street because they mansplaining to you. Okay? All right, guys, it's time for me to get going. So, if you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and pass it on to somebody else who might be wondering about this same kind of question. Likewise, all of my contact information is going to be underneath this video. And if you want to become one of my patrons, my Patreon will be underneath this video as well. All right, guys, see you later.